In the previous chapter, we saw Zhou Fan unleash the terrifying almighty Scarlet Dragon King, combining the Killin's power with his Heaven Dragon soul. The once mighty Soul Chain Array collapsed under its immense power, leaving Zhao Deju and his team in complete despair. With the battlefield now dominated by Zhou Fan's Scarlet Dragon, the tables have turned, setting the stage for an epic confrontation. Let's begin the chapter. The scarlet tail of the dragon flicked with an air of casual menace, emanating a crimson glow that felt like a tangible weight crushing down on the disciples of the universal righteous sect. Each movement of the tail reverberated with power, causing their protective barrier to tremble violently, as if barely holding together against the force of an impending storm. Exalted He Ran, observing the scene from a distance, couldn't hide the astonishment in his voice. I never imagined his Heaven Dragon soul could undergo such a transformation. What kind of enlightenment did he achieve to elevate it to such heights? It's incomprehensibly powerful, far beyond anything I've seen. Bai Mei, even we couldn't hope to replicate this. Exalted Bai Mei nodded in agreement, equally captivated. To have such realizations at such a young age, the strength of his Heaven Dragon soul is truly remarkable. His future is undoubtedly bound for greatness. Now I wonder, who will emerge? Victorious, him, or Ye Lin? Which one will truly stand at the pinnacle of the Western lands? He Ran's gaze remained fixed on the battle, his expression a mix of awe and anticipation. What neither of them realized was that Zhou Fan and Ye Lin were both inheritors of sacred beasts. Their understanding of the soul was not only deep, but fundamentally different. The praises from the two exalted figures were far from sufficient to capture the magnitude of their abilities. Zhou Fan's transformation stemmed from merging the unparalleled power of the Qilin, the mightiest sacred beast, with his Heaven Dragon, Soul. This union gave birth to the almighty Scarlet Dragon King, a manifestation of raw, untamed strength that dwarfed his previous dragon soul. However, despite its sheer power, it remained an amalgamation, a hybrid of two great forces. On the other hand, Ye Lin, as the inheritor of the decimating dragon ancestor, had cultivated his golden Heaven Dragon King into a pure and perfected form. It was the epitome of the Heaven Dragon soul's potential, designed to dominate in its domain. In terms of sheer purity and alignment with the dragon race, Ye Lin's creation was undeniably superior. Zhou Fan understood this well. For now, though, what he had revealed was more than enough. A wicked grin spread across Zhou Fan's face as his thoughts returned to the present. With a flick of his mind, the scarlet dragon's tail moved again, slicing effortlessly through the illusory chains that had bound him. As the restraints shattered, a shockwave of power rippled outward, leaving Zhao Deju and his team coughing up blood in its wake. The fear in their eyes was palpable. The power of the Scarlet Dragon King was beyond their comprehension. Even with the combined strength of all 10 disciples, they couldn't withstand its might for even a second. Their barrier, the only thing protecting them, was now on the verge of collapse. If the barrier fell, so too would their lives. This realization sent waves of despair through the disciples. They regretted their arrogance. Had they known Zhou Fan's true strength, they would never have dared to provoke him. But now, it was too late. Zhao Deju, the once proud leader, was pale and trembling. His voice wavered as he tried to negotiate. Zhou Fan, let's not take this any further. We admit defeat. You and the demon scheming sect can continue challenging others. We'll withdraw. The other 9 disciples nodded fervently, their earlier bravado replaced by desperate hope. From the sidelines, the spectators looked on with disdain. Wu Qingqiu, watching the scene unfold, couldn't help but sneer. Some people never learn. Even now they're trying to weasel their way out. But the situation was far from simple. The soul chain array tied the lives of the disciples together, making their survival dependent on the barrier. Taking it down required mutual agreement. If Zhou Fan acted while they were vulnerable, it would spell their doom. This cruel irony wasn't lost on Zhou Fan. He had been their target, but now the tables had turned entirely. He looked at Zhao Deju and his disciples coldly, his voice laced with mockery. "Back off now? After all that talk? You destroyed so many of my Heaven Dragon Soul's scales, and now you want to flee? Do you think I'll let you off that easily?" Without waiting for a response, the Scarlet Dragon's tail slammed into the barrier again. The force sent shock waves through the disciples, leaving them coughing up blood once more. The barrier was now trembling on the edge of collapse. Zhou Fan's savage grin deepened. "You righteous types love to preach about good and evil, don't you? Always going on about purging demons and upholding justice. Let me help you fulfill that mission. Either you kill me or I kill you. Only one side will leave this valley alive." The disciples of the demon scheming sect erupted into laughter, taunting their opponents mercilessly. The universal righteous. Sect disciples, however, were visibly shaken. They turned to their leader, hoping for guidance. Zhao Deju's face was a mix of fear and determination. Finally, he roared, "Demon scum! Don't think we're out of options. You may be strong, but we are united. 10 against 1. You don't stand a chance. Brothers, remember our principles. Fight with everything you've got. Let's show him the might of the universal righteous sect." His speech reignited a flicker of hope in his comrades. Bolstered by his words, they prepared themselves for a desperate final stand. Even the onlookers couldn't help but feel a moment of admiration for their bravery. Wu Qingqiu sighed. "Zhao Deju's arrogance aside, his courage is admirable." Yan Mo, standing nearby, smirked. "Courage? Don't be fooled. This is nothing but a farce. He's using his comrades as pawns to save his own skin. Just watch." Wu Qingqiu frowned but said nothing. Back on the battlefield, the disciples of the Universal Righteous Sect launched a renewed assault, their battle spirit rekindled. Chains shot out toward the Scarlet Dragon, glowing with desperate energy. For a moment, it seemed as though they might have a chance. But Zhou Fan's mocking gaze told a different story. With a single effortless motion, the Scarlet Dragon shattered the chains. The disciples were thrown back, coughing up blood once more. Zhao Deju, undeterred, shouted again, "Don't give up! With me here, victory is assured! Fight on, brothers!" His words spurred the disciples into action once more, but the pattern repeated itself. Every attack was met with devastating retaliation from Zhou Fan's dragon. The cycle of hope and despair continued, each round leaving the disciples more broken than before. Finally, as the barrier began to crumble, Zhao Deju's true colors were revealed. With a sly smile, he severed his connection to the array, leaving his comrades to face their doom. "Forgive me, brothers," he said as he fled. "This time victory is ungrasped." The remaining disciples stared in disbelief as their leader abandoned them. The barrier collapsed entirely, and the Scarlet Dragon surged forward, its power unstoppable. The battlefield fell silent, save for the sound of the Universal Righteous Sect's disciples falling one by one. Zhou Fan's Scarlet Dragon loomed over the battlefield, its oppressive presence casting an eerie shadow on the Universal Righteous Sect's disciples. They stood in disbelief, their gazes fixed on their senior brother Zhao Deju, who was retreating, without shame. Tears welled up in some of their eyes as the realization hit. They had been abandoned by the very person who had vowed to lead them to victory. "Senior brother, how could you—" One of them stammered, his voice trembling, with a mix of betrayal and despair. Zhao Deju avoided their eyes, his steps faltering as he offered a feeble justification. "The Double Dragon Gathering must have a survivor. Someone needs to guide the next generation. This is for the greater good." His words rang hollow, a thin veil over his cowardice. Zhuo Fan watched this display with an amused smirk, his voice cutting through the heavy silence like a blade. You still don't get it, do you? Your glorious senior brother never intended to stand with you. He was only using you to keep the barrier intact long enough to save his own skin. 9 lives sacrificed so one could flee. Your deaths are his bargaining chips, nothing more. But hey, at least now your meaningless existence has some worth. Ha ha ha! The disciples' gazes turned toward Zhao Deju, now filled with anger and sorrow. One disciple, his voice quivering with rage, spat, "You're nothing but a spineless hypocrite, Zhao Deju! How dare you?" Before he could finish, Zhuofan's scarlet dragon moved with devastating force, shattering the chains binding it. With a deafening roar, the massive beast slammed into the weakening barrier, reducing it to shards. The disciples were flung in all directions, their bodies battered and broken by the impact. Blood spilled freely as life drained from their eyes, their final moments etched with anger and regret. As fate would have it, their lifeless forms landed around Zhao Deju. Their wide, accusing eyes stared at him even in death, forcing him to stumble back, his face pale with shame. He turned away, unable to face the silent judgment of his fallen comrades. The spectators watched in stunned silence before murmurs of disdain began to ripple through the crowd. To forsake your comrades in the heat of battle. What a disgrace, someone muttered. Even among cultivators who strive to survive at any cost, this is too much. A true warrior faces challenges head-on, not by trampling over his own people. He could have at least admitted his betrayal openly. Pretending it was for the greater good only makes him more detestable. He's unfit to call himself a man. The criticism was sharp and relentless, cutting deeper than any blade. Wu Qingqiu, watching from the sidelines, sighed heavily. Now I understand what you meant, Yan Mo. He's even worse than I thought. Meanwhile, the female disciples of the Universal Righteous Sect, including Shui Ruohua, exchanged glances filled with newfound clarity. They couldn't help but admire Chu Qingqing, who had always warned them about the complexities of human nature. All this time we trained to differentiate good from evil, Shui Ruohua said quietly. But we were blind to the shades of gray in between. Zhao Deju's actions have made it painfully clear. She turned to her younger brother, Xuan Xiaoyu, her expression softening into one of concern. Remember this, little brother. A true gentleman stands upright, faces adversity with dignity, and never forsakes his allies. Let this be a warning to you. Xuan Xiaoyu, sulking over Zhuo Fan's victory, waved her off dismissively, though a flicker of resentment sparked in his eyes. The scene shifted back to the battlefield, where Zhuo Fan approached Zhao Deju with a menacing grin. The scarlet dragon, now hovering above, let out a low growl, its fangs bared and ready. Zhao Deju panicked, his hands flailing as he shouted, "Well, wait! I surrender! You can't touch me! The rules of the Double Dragon Gathering forbid it! Elder, take me out of here! Universal Righteous Sect admits defeat!" His desperate cries echoed across the valley, drawing only more scorn from the audience. The judge, his expression unreadable, glanced at the gatekeepers, signaling for them to open the exit. A beam of white light descended, and the judge's voice rang out. The battle between the demon-scheming sect and the universal righteous sect is concluded. The demon-scheming sect is the victor. No further fighting is permitted. The announcement was met with thunderous cheers from the demon-scheming sect's disciples, their jubilant cries filling the air. Even the spectators couldn't help but admire their meteoric rise from a lower-ranked sect to a position among the strongest. Amid the celebration, Zhuo Fan continued to close the distance between himself and Zhao Deju. His steps were slow, deliberate, and laced with an unsettling confidence. Zhao Deju's voice trembled as he stammered, You heard the judge? It's over! You're not allowed to touch me!" Zhuo Fan stopped just short of him, his expression calm but his eyes gleaming with mischief. "Relax, Zhao Deju. I'm a law-abiding man. Since the judge has spoken, I won't lay a finger on you. And truth be told, I wouldn't have harmed you even without his intervention. Zhao Deju blinked in confusion. What? What do you mean? Zhuo Fan chuckled, the sound both mocking and ominous. Think about it. What's more beneficial for me? Killing you here and now, or letting you go back to your sect? You see, it's not the strong enemy you should fear, but the weak ally who stabs you in the back. You, Zhao Deju, are the kind of man who brings chaos to your own ranks. Why would I eliminate someone so valuable to my cause? Go home. Betray as many people as you like. In doing so, you'll pave the way for demonic cultivators to reign supreme. You're not my enemy! You're my lucky star! His words were met with roaring laughter from the demon-scheming sect and even the spectators. Zhao Deju, however, stood frozen, his face a mask of humiliation and fury. Yanmo, watching from a distance, threw his head back and laughed. Zhuo Fan, you've outdone yourself. This is sheer genius. Letting this fool sow discord in the righteous sects will only make our future victories easier. I can already see the stars of the demonic cultivators rising. Wu Qingqiu shook his head, a wry smile tugging at his lips. He had to admit, the universal righteous sect had brought this humiliation upon themselves. As the curtain of light enveloped, Zhao Deju, shielding him from further ridicule, he cast one last hateful glance at Zhuo Fan. But the demonic cultivator didn't spare him another thought, already preparing for the next challenge. The demon-scheming sect's journey wasn't over. Their next opponent, Hellion Flame, stood no chance, their strength already depleted from a grueling battle with Ultimate Clarity sect. Zhuo Fan dispatched them with ease, leaving only one opponent standing between him and ultimate victory. Ye, Lin of the Ultimate Clarity sect, the decimating dragon ancestor's disciple. The stage was set for the final confrontation, a clash between two sacred beast inheritors. The air was thick with anticipation as Zhuo Fan and Ye Lin faced each other, their auras radiating power and determination. This was it, the battle that would decide the fate of the Double Dragon Gathering.